You're listening to the Whole Hog Sports Podcast. And now, here's your host, Matt Jones.
Today on the show, do we really know what Arkansas football is? We'll talk about that today as we get to the halfway point of the season. It feels like this team's still a little bit of a mystery, even though their record is what it is. We'll also get Ethan Westerman's thoughts from his time at the Razorback basketball practice last weekend. First, a word from Kendall King.
At Kendall King, we're proud of over 4 decades of design. We're continuing the legacy of great creative design by combining our brands of Kendall King, Soapbox, and Shopcart. Together, these brands represent a new focus in marketing design, with individual attention to specific areas. Through our design expertise supported by a team of talented professionals, we showcase our best. We are Kendall King, we are Soapbox, we are Shopcart, we are design.
You know, as Arkansas goes to Tennessee this weekend, I had this thought a day or so ago that we don't really know a whole lot about this football team. The record is what it is, and you are what your record says you are. They're 2-3. They're a losing football team, and that's probably right. They could have won at Ole Miss. They could have won at Memphis, but that's a lot of coulda, woulda, shoulda. They got run off the field last time they played against Notre Dame. But I don't know that we've ever gotten to this point in the season, and a coaching change now certainly even adds to this a little bit more, where I have not had a feel for like what kind of football team is this really? We know they're a bad defense, probably going to be a bad defense the rest of the year. We know that they have had times where they have looked good on offense, but you just think back to what if they would have beaten Ole Miss, or what if they would have beaten Memphis, and they're 3-2 instead of 2-3, or maybe they're 4-1 instead of 2-3. Do we think of them different than we did or that we do right now? Would there have been a head coaching change? A lot of this is hypothetical stuff, obviously, but I guess where I'm going with this, Ethan, is as they go to Tennessee this weekend, I don't know what to expect from Arkansas. I don't know if I should expect the team that went to Ole Miss and had Ole Miss on the ropes at the end, or should I expect the team that played Notre Dame 2 weeks ago and didn't look like they belonged on the same field with a team that, you know, is a top-tier football program? I just really don't know. And so I think that this weekend at Tennessee, I'm not going to say that it's going to set or reset expectations for the rest of the season, but I'm hoping that maybe it gives us a little bit clearer picture of what this Arkansas football team is this year, because I don't know that I've really I don't know what to expect week to week. I thought it was going to be a close game against Notre Dame. Obviously it was not. I have no idea what to expect as they go into this Tennessee game. And you get the feeling, listening to Josh Heupel on the teleconference this week, I think he's kind of got a little bit of that feeling too, given all the changes that have happened within the program in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and I think you can even go a little bit further into it of which Arkansas offense are you going to get? Because you think we're talking about how the perception of the season would be different right now had they pulled out those games against Ole Miss and Memphis, or just one of the two even would change kind of how you feel. And a lot of the reason that they were in those games is because the offense had so much success. And I think that eventually just not having the support of a defense that you can ever feel like can get you a stop. And it just felt like there was no margin for error for that offense. And it was finally kind of a little bit of let go of the rope on that side of the ball too, which we hadn't seen really until the second half against Memphis, it felt like. I do think that this Arkansas offense, though, if it can kick back into that gear that it was, perform the level it was performing at against Ole Miss, they could go into Tennessee and really give them a fight. I just think that we haven't seen even shades of complimentary football this season, though, aside from maybe portions of those first 2 games that, let's be real, if your defense can't have good moments in those type of games, like there's no hope for the defense. I think that if they can get even some semblance of complimentary, I can't say that word. Complimentary.
With an E, not an I.
With an E, not an I. You're right. That's a big time mistake, I feel like, in journalism. But if they can get even some semblance of that, I'm not even going to attempt to say it again, then that is whenever they can really start to take steps in the right direction to maybe come out on the other side in some of these games.
I don't know what to expect from Tennessee defensively. Their defense is they're weird to me, for lack of a better term. They give up a lot of points. I mean, Syracuse scored 26 against them in 12 possessions, Georgia 44 in 13 possessions, Mississippi State 34 and 15 possessions. One of the things that jumps out to me is that that's a lot of possessions that their defense has had to play this year. It reminds me a little bit of Notre Dame a couple of weeks ago where I was saying Notre Dame, I don't know that their numbers are quite as bad as people think they are. Yes, they're giving up a lot of points, but they're also having to play a lot of possessions. And what that tells me is that their offense is operating at a really high rate. The other thing is that Tennessee defensively, they scored 3 touchdowns this year. They had a touchdown against Syracuse. They had 2 touchdowns 2 weeks ago against Mississippi State in their last game. So their defense, it's kind of like give a little, but then they also get a little too defensively. I don't know what to expect from them. Mentioned the efficiency ratings yesterday. The score that this is predicted, I've never seen a score this high. It's got Tennessee 40, Arkansas 30, which goes to tell you that the expectation is that it's going to be a high-scoring game. Now, I think we heard Bobby Petrino say something about this earlier this week. Just as soon as you think that it's going to be a high-scoring game, it's 10-9 at halftime, and maybe it ends up something like that. But just kind of you look at the track record of how these teams have played. Again, you take Notre Dame maybe out of the equation for Arkansas because the offense didn't play so well. It's been a lot of back and forth type track meets, and maybe that's what you're looking for Saturday night.
Yeah, and I think that you look at Tennessee, and it's the one thing saving Arkansas from being dead last. I think in like every major defensive category, because Tennessee is last in pass defense, like 2 yards per game average, worse than Arkansas. Granted, some of that is attributed to they played UAB, and UAB I think passed for like 300 something yards and rushed for 20. So it's like your total defense is what's more important, because who cares if a team has this many passing yards or this many rushing yards if their overall isn't that great. But I think that Tennessee has shown some vulnerability in both the pass and run defense.
But just to, again, go back to the number of possessions they've been on the field defensively in the same number of games against Power 4 or good group of 6 teams, Tennessee has had 10 more defensive possessions than Arkansas has had in the same number of games.
Yeah, and like you said, that's a big credit to their offense and how good it's been. I feel like Arkansas in this game, like you said, you go into it thinking it could be high scoring, but it really can change so fast, because if the defense doesn't show signs of improvement, it's hard to keep an offense to keep going punch for punch. I think it's just so deflating whenever you go 3 and out for the first time and you see the defense like 3-play touchdown drive like we saw against Notre Dame. I felt like that's a little bit of what happened in that game, was just the offense started off it was a field goal drive, and you quickly learned that field goals wouldn't get it done against Notre Dame because they were going to be scoring touchdowns against that defense. I think that the defense, just has to come out and play better, or else you could see your offensive numbers decline throughout the rest of the year.
I asked Chris Lowe about this earlier in the week about revenge and the revenge factor in a game like this. And I think I disagree with what he said. He thinks that revenge gets overplayed a little bit. There probably is some truth to that. I think that, that does get overplayed some. In a game like this, though, where you've got an Arkansas team that's clearly reeling a little bit, you got a Tennessee team that they're capable of scoring points in bunches in a hurry, and you've got what happened last year, storming the field, playing Rocky Top, those type of things. I think those stay with you. Going back to Vanderbilt and Alabama for a second, I was listening to Josh Pate's show a couple of days ago, and he said that when he was at the Georgia-Alabama game, he said before the Alabama players were even walking off the field, they were already talking about Vanderbilt. Like the game the year before had their attention within minutes of them finishing off what a lot of people think is going to be one of, if not their biggest game of the year against Georgia, in Georgia. And so I think there's a little bit of that Arkansas has got to be prepared for this week. That, yeah, Nico Iamaleava, he's gone. And a lot of the players who were on that team last year, they're gone. But there are a lot who are back. There's a coaching staff that's back. And it just feels like, if you're not careful, you could be walking into a little bit of a buzzsaw right there. Reminds me a little bit of what Arkansas, and I don't know why I thought about this game, but in 2015, Arkansas beat Auburn up here in Fayetteville in 4 overtimes. And then they went there the next year, And I mean, that place was electric for that game, and the team fed off of the electricity in the stands. And I think there's going to be a lot of electricity there at Neyland on Saturday afternoon. And it was like 56-3. Arkansas lost to Auburn. They ran a touchdown on the first play of the game, and it was just an absolute shellacking. I think you got to guard against something like that this week, and it's gonna. I think it's gonna show a lot about Petrino's coaching ability to connect to these players, how well they're able to stay in this game. Because it's going to be real easy. I would think that if you get behind, and it's very possible you can against Tennessee, you get behind, it's going to be real easy to say, okay, here we go again, and things are going to go sideways. And so these are all little things that I'm looking for that I think are make up the bigger picture of this game this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. And I do think in this era of college football that the revenge factor really is more for the coaches and the fan base most of the time, because it is so many moving pieces.
We got players. Like 60 new players every year.
I mean, like there's a few pieces left on Tennessee's team like that were real contributors last year who are still on that team. I mean, that's the case for every team. You have somebody. Mm-hmm. But I really do think it sticks with the coaching staff more. And it's a pride thing because, I mean, you saw it this year. Arkansas, you could tell that, I mean, they ended up on the wrong side of the scoreboard, but that game at Ole Miss meant something to the coaches, I think, a little bit more this year because of what happened last year in Fayetteville when they were just absolutely humiliated. It felt like a game that more than the players, it was like the players have less to prove than the coaches right now of like, how can you do against this program? I think for Tennessee, Josh Heupel and that offense, I think that if they have a chance to make a statement, they
will. I mean, because they're a one-loss team that I think is probably good enough to be in the playoff conversation at the end of the year. If you can have some of these statement-type, eye-popping scores against other SEC teams, those help you. I think they do when you're in the committee room.
Yeah, I don't think that like just beating Arkansas on face value moves the needle, but if you can really just handle a team, I think that there's a lot of respect for that. Especially, I mean, people do know that Arkansas gave Ole Miss a fit, and Ole Miss is highly ranked this week. They know that this is an Arkansas team that's capable of hanging with a top team. So if you can do what Notre Dame did to Arkansas, quite frankly, that's how you really it becomes a statement victory. Just beating Arkansas on face value doesn't do that, but if you just drill them like Notre Dame did, then it does.
Well, you're going to at least have one playoff committee member watching this game closely on Saturday, maybe more than that. You talk about revenge or payback or whatever you want to call it. Remember, Taylon Green got hurt in this game last year, too. And I thought it was a dirty hit by Omar Norman Lott to his knee during, what was the third quarter of the game that happened?
Third or early fourth, one of the two.
But knocked him out, and the coaches said that they thought that affected him the last half of the season. I think, was it Ben Souders who said in the preseason that you don't know what he was playing through the last 8 weeks of the year?
Pretty much every coach said that who could. Ben Souders was just the most vocal about it. I mean, that was the type of hit that changed the course of the season for Taylon Green because he wasn't as good of a runner the rest of the year, in my opinion, as to be expected. But I do think that for him, there's probably a little bit of a, revenge factor because that was a game that kind of could have really derailed the rest of his season. He did, pretty well with what he could do, I think, over the final however many games Arkansas had after that. But, yeah, it was a pretty dirty hit last year.
What do you think the biggest matchup in this game is?
I mean, it's like you cannot talk about Arkansas for the rest of the year until the defense improves without just like how is the run defense. I think that's where it starts, and Petrino said it in his introductory press conference. If they can't stop the run first, then everything's open. And I think with this Tennessee offense, especially with the way Aguilar's playing and Brazel, I watched Tennessee versus Mississippi State, and he was the best player on the field, I thought.
I said yesterday, I think he might be somebody who we're not talking about who's flying under the radar by the time you get to the end of the season, putting up big enough numbers that he's on some people's Heisman radar.
Yeah. I just felt like it was the type of, if they were in trouble, where's this guy type of deal. And then I think, if I'm recalling correctly, in the Georgia game, he scored like three touchdowns. Yeah.
Including a 72-yarder.
Yeah, he's really good. So I think Arkansas has to stop the run first because they have a dynamic enough passing game that if both things are working, like kind of has been the case for the past however many games for teams against the Arkansas defense, this is just too good of an offense that you can't not take something away. Last year, Arkansas did a good job defensively, by taking away really a lot of the deep passing game. And kind of forced Iamaleava to have to be perfect on a lot of these kind of intermediate routes. And Arkansas took something away from Tennessee. They had a really good running back last year with, was it Sampson, Dylan Sampson? And he had some production against Arkansas, but it just felt like Arkansas made them a little bit one-dimensional and had to reach to try and make some plays that aren't normal. They cannot let this Tennessee offense run the ball and pass the ball against them, or else it's going to get out of hand.
And Jerry Neuheisel wasn't calling plays for Nico during that game.
True.
But it was amazing what he did last week. If you watched any of that, the UCLA Penn State game. I know you listened to players talk last night. What stood out to you?
They were really, I just sensed like a little bit of an attitude shift from a perspective of, you can tell that practices have been a little bit more, you're here at this time, you're here at this time, this is how, like, it just seems like there's a lot more, like, of a rigid practice schedule. I know that they're starting earlier than they used to and they're ending earlier. They haven't really fully gotten into Petrino's rhythm of what a practice week will look like, because the open weekend changed that. And then this week is their first one kind of getting back in the swing of a game week. But he wants to, you have your game Saturday, then on Sunday watch film and have like your second team practice on Sunday night. And then off on Monday, and then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday practice. It just, there's a change of rhythm and pace. And you can tell from hearing the players talk that there's been a lot more just detail, I feel like, in practice with specific drills. They're doing something called tap the hat on defense, where if whoever makes the play on defense, all 10 other guys have to run up to him and tap him on the hat. It's basically be like, good job for making the play. But it also reinforces just pursuing to the ball and where the play is. It just seems like they're doing a lot more things like that are like getting just to the heart of the matter of, you've got to run to the football and be where the action is. So I thought it was interesting to hear players talk. I know this, it sounds outlandish for fans to to hear them say it, but I mean, it's what you want to hear. They were talking about running the table. At least they were talking about it. Like, I think it was Quincy Rhodes and maybe Mike Washington. One or two of the guys who talked last night said something about, we want to win all the rest of our games. I was like, that seems like you've got your locker room bought into like a vision that you can still be a good team. So that stood out to me, that they were talking about how somebody, it's hard whenever you hear four players back to back to back to remember who said what. One of them said, we only have one SEC loss right now. We want to run the table. So I was like, all right.
Tennessee is an interesting game to me because it could, again, I feel like it could maybe reset expectations a little bit. You have to be mindful of the fact that the defense is not going to get a whole lot better. It may get better. It's hard to get worse. But it's going to be hard for it to get just a whole lot better in the season, I think. Maybe it can, and maybe we bring out the anointing oil in 3 or 4 weeks.
If this defense changes drastically enough, Colby Wilson, did I say it's not
Chris Wilson?
Chris Wilson.
Yeah,
Colby Smith.
Smith is the offensive coordinator.
Goodness. Chris Wilson, if this defense does have the pixie dust or whatever Juracek said that makes them incredible, somebody hire the man.
Yeah. But you get 3 straight home games after this. And A&M, they look really good. I don't know that they don't look invincible, but they look really good, and their defense is real good. Those next 2 games against Auburn and Mississippi State, if you play well against Tennessee and Texas A&M, even if you don't win, I think it maybe makes you think that, hey, you got a chance here in these 2 home games at the back end of that stretch.
Yeah, for sure. And if you look at it, the home stretch, you have to win more than you lose in that if you want to keep any, hope of bowl eligibility alive, unless somehow Arkansas wins all of its away games from here on, which I don't think that's very likely.
I feel like bowl eligibility is so far-fetched.
Yeah, but I do think for this year it's a little bit more like that is, I feel like, the threshold to make Petrino a legitimate candidate. I think if they're able to get to bowl eligibility, that's something that doesn't seem very likely right now, just given the schedule. But if they can, it's like, and there's the path to get to it is you have to do well in those home games.
You got to have something to strive for, and I'm sure that's something that's been talked to them about, or I would think that it has been talked to them about, is, hey, if you do this, this, and this, maybe you can get to 6 games and you can have an extra game. I don't know, but boy, it seems like it just
It
it
does.
feels like a real stretch. Memphis in any preseason forecast about what this team could do,
That had to be a win.
it had to be a win. And the fact that that's a loss, now you got to go find a win over a team that not a lot of people expected you were going to beat.
Exactly. And that's here's opportunity number one this weekend to try and do that, because they're going to have to reverse that game somewhere on the schedule with somebody who's honestly going to be a playoff contender, or at least in the discussion. But I think that, these two games against Tennessee and A&M to kind of set up that Auburn Mississippi State stretch, I think it will be a real good marker for the improvements that Arkansas has made. I mean, you're playing two defensive fronts in Tennessee and A&M that are among the best in the SEC at getting to the quarterback. I think Tennessee led the SEC in sacks before the bye week, and then Texas A&M might have surpassed them. So it's going to be a real challenge for the Arkansas offensive line to face these defenses that have been good at getting to the quarterback, and then you're also facing two offenses that have been pretty good at times. So, I think that, honestly, you look at Arkansas' schedule, and I don't think many people in the preseason would have pinpointed, at least in the SEC schedule, this the toughest, 2-game stretch as far as, opponents. But, I mean, look at it right now. Tennessee and Texas A&M are two of the SEC's better teams, and so it's, honestly, Petrino getting into his tenure as the interim coach against maybe the hardest 2-game stretch that they'll have.
Trino's going to be at the Catfish Hole tonight, going to be just like old times. The first radio coaches show was Bobby Petrino Live, or some variation of that name. It's kind of interesting. They're not calling it Bobby Petrino Live, by the way. The rest of the year, it's just Razorback Football Live. I think that might be a way not to totally set expectations for him getting the job moving forward. But it is going to be interesting to see him back out there because, again, that didn't exist until Petrino came to town the first time.
I do want to see if you remember, for some weird reason, everybody else's brains during the Notre Dame game were going probably 1,000 different other directions. I asked you in the fourth quarter, I said, because, it just felt like this has got to be the end. I said, what happens to the Sam Pittman Live if he's fired after this game? I said, that's a lot of branding work. Mm-hmm. They settled on Razorback Football Live. I'll be interested to see how much they utilize the bye week to do some new, radio spots, the intro sound and stuff. It's there's actually a lot that goes into rebranding stuff like that. And they had a bye week to do it. But it's going to be funny, though, just the Razorback Football Live is just the blandest name they could have come up with. But what else are you going to do?
Do you think they've taken all those coaches' pictures down at the Catfish Hole? Because you go in that one room and you've got pictures of all the different football coaches and then other head coaches. The AD is up.
Yeah,
a lot of people had to come down this week.
Yeah, that's true. There's a lot that goes into these radio shows, so I'll be interested to hear how Bobby is on it. I never listened to Bobby Petrino's radio show first go around, but I'd assume that it'll be very interesting.
Yeah, I think so. So that'll be tonight, and we'll have more to write about and talk about and everything after we hear him on that show tonight. When we come back, we're going to talk Razorback basketball, get some of Ethan's thoughts from last weekend's scrimmage or practice at Bud Walton Arena. First, a word from Kendall King.
At Kendall King, we're proud of over 4 decades of design. We're continuing the legacy of great creative design by combining our brands of Kendall King, Soapbox, and Shopcart. Together, these brands represent a new focus in marketing design, with individual attention to specific areas. Through our design expertise supported by a team of talented professionals, we showcase our best. We are Kendall King, we are Soapbox, we are Shopcart, we are design.
Hey, welcome back. I want to tell you about our friends at Bentonville Glass. They've been serving their community since 1971. Committed, professional, versatile. If you're looking for a quality leader in Northwest Arkansas or looking for skilled craftsmanship, look no further than Bentonville Glass for all your glass market needs with the highest quality products. You can come by and see them now at 507 South Main in Bentonville or online at bentonvilleglass.com. I want to tell you, too, that next Thursday, Kelsey Music, the new women's basketball coach for the Razorbacks, she's going to be coming to the Hogs Illustrated Sports Club. That's October 16th at noon at Home 2 Suites in Springdale. You can reserve your seat now to hear her speak at ozarkstix.com, OZARKSTIX.com. We've already, ticket link is shut down, but for tomorrow, we're going to have Bruiser Flint, former UMass head coach, been with John Calipari for a long time. He's not a full-time assistant, but he's very integral to the operation. He's going to be there, and Ethan's going to be talking to him. That will be our podcast tomorrow. Will be Bruiser Flint at the Hogs Illustrated Sports Club. Looking forward a little bit further out, October 23rd, Mitch Mustaine is going to be there. That'll be kind of interesting to get his perspective on things. I'm sure we'll talk some about the year that he spent at Arkansas. And then I'm not going to say what it is just yet because we have not totally finalized, nailed down every little detail. But we got a really cool luncheon coming up on October 30th that we're excited to tell you about once the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed. I think it's going to be something that people really enjoy. I know I'll enjoy it, right?
I think you will.
I think I will. Okay, so the prime time at the Palace was last Friday night at Bud Walton Arena. Takeaways from this, seeing John Calipari's team on the court for the first time this year?
Yeah, I mean, there's no takeaways from actually what they did on the court. It was clear that what they did was they wanted to get up and down the court. And
somebody said there's more defense played in the NBA All-Star game than what happened last Friday night.
Yeah, it was clear that John Calipari must have huddled them together and said, if I see anybody even attempt to go up and contest a shot, there's going to be consequences. I mean, heck, they did a dunk contest, and Trevin Brazil decided to put Elmir, I cannot pronounce his last name. He's from Bosnia and how do you say that country? Bosnia and Herzegovina. I don't know how to say it either. I can't say his last name. He's the 7-foot.
I'm just going to let you keep going because I don't want to be part of saying anything incorrectly.
I'll learn his name at some point. It is hard. It's one of those last names.
We don't have our pronunciation guide yet.
There's no pronunciation guide. All I know is he is a big 7-foot freshman center. He is 7 foot 285. This dude is massive. And Trevin Brazil puts him in front of the goal for the dunk contest and decides that's going to be his dunk, is jumping over this just humongous human. And John Calipari literally, you could tell, like, he kind of starts rushing over there a little bit and says something to Trevin Brazil. It looked like he was probably a little bit like, are you seriously about to do this? Like, I think Calipari has flashbacks to this time last year right now and, like, players getting hurt from... We've heard that John L. Davis had a golf cart accident.
He fell off the golf cart going around a roundabout.
So it's like, there were too many just weird injuries last year that set them back. I think that Calipari was not thrilled with the idea of Trevin Brazil jumping over a 7-foot guy. But, like, what are you going to do at that point? The whole crowd is excited now because you've shown what your dunk is going to be. Or is Cal going to be like, no, don't do that while the fans are cheering it on? Anyway, all that to say, Trevin Brazil jumped over Elmir, and it was the best. Him or Billy Richmond had the best dunk. Billy Richmond's was more, like, actually skilled. Trevin's was just, like, crazy athleticism. But I don't know where I was going with this. Oh, yeah. The whole gist of this whole event was nobody get hurt. Nobody get hurt. Let's just get the fans excited to see your face and to hear me on a microphone. I think it would have been cool had the players had the microphone in their hands a little bit more. It was mostly coaches. Matt Zimmerman got down there and was talking in it a lot too. He kind of helped moderate some of the dunk contest, 3-point contest, but it was just a big hype up event. There was no practice. Their practice was before that started. Clearly, like that was not a practice. So, but it was very much just a hype event, and I think Calipari enjoyed for the first time getting to kind of host this event at Bud Walton. I know that it was nowhere near what I think like what they've turned Big Blue Madness into at Kentucky. I mean, it's just this was year one of this event. You have to grow over time with something, and but it was cool. It was a good turnout. I think that they could have better turnout as the years go and it becomes more of a thing that people are maybe looking forward to.
Just so weird. And I've talked about this before, how early basketball season begins now. October 3rd on a Friday night, high school football, other things going on. Weekend where the football team isn't playing, so obviously there's not a football game in town. It's just I feel like it's out of mind for a lot of people to be at a basketball event at that point in time.
It is, and it felt a little bit like that, like getting splashed with cold water of like wake up, it's actually here. It's that's just kind of what it felt like to me inside the arena, was just the vibe of, wait, this is actually like right around the corner. Like, don't look up now, or else we'll be right the season opener and the schedule that Arkansas has put together. But I think that they've got the type of team right now that just is exciting. It's like, this is going to be one of those teams that Arkansas fans can go into a season actually expecting really big things from, because they have a roster that should be able to compete with anybody.
I want to hold up this magazine again. Can we see this? Or this is on my camera. Okay, yeah. So this is Carter Knox on our Hogs Illustrated basketball preview. We've talked about this on the show a little bit within the last week or so. You can go to shop.nwaonline.com right now if you want to buy a single copy issue of that, or you can obviously subscribe to Hogs Illustrated at hogsillustrated.com. This is a cool magazine. It's got a lot of really neat things in here. We were able to convince them to get Carter Knox in there with some chickens. I've talked to Christina about this. I want to get your perspective from this this photo shoot, because you were there too.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I will say it was my idea. In like July, I was sitting around. I said, because we were thinking through this basketball magazine.
Because in July, that's all you have to do.
Exactly.
There's nothing going on. We're just thinking about what could we maybe do in 3
Your
months.
activity is deep thought, and we were thinking about the basketball magazine and like who should be on the cover, and like, I mean, it made sense to have one of the returners and Carter Knox. Obviously, went through the draft process last year. He's expected to get picked this year. It just made sense to have him on the cover, but then it's like, what do you do with it? And I was like, they do call him the chicken man. Like, worst case scenario, you ask if we can have him with chickens, and they say no. And lo and behold, he was down to do it. And he was a natural with them is the thing. Like, he was very much he was doing the little what's this called? This action that moms do?
Cradle?
The cradle, yeah. I don't know why I couldn't think of it. He was cradling one of the chickens, so and it was enjoying it. It was actually impressive to see how well he handled chickens. But yeah, that was fun. He's very much, I think, got a bigger personality than maybe fans know just based on press conferences and stuff. Seeing him in that setting, his personality really came out. And he is a funny guy.
It's never too early to talk about this stuff. I was actually having a conversation with Christina yesterday about the baseball preview, because you blink and January will be here and baseball season's going to be among us. And so it's kind of funny how it feels like we're so far out from something, but when you really start thinking about it, it's like, you got Thanksgiving, you got Christmas, and days seem to kind of go by fast at a certain point. That'll be here before you know it. Basketball's here. SEC Media Days are next week in Birmingham. I know you're going to be down there for that. This weekend they've got an open practice in Hot Springs at Bank OZK Arena. That might be a little bit more, like that might be more of an interesting practice to go to than what you saw last Friday.
Yeah, for sure. I think if it's anything like what the intention was last year with those events, it was a legitimate practice. And getting to watch the guys, get up and down with some intensity. I think that what they were trying to do Friday was strictly just hype up fans. Mm-hmm. Really, practice wasn't supposed to really be that big of a part of it. I think it was just see the team with your eyeballs and see them get up and down the court a little bit, even if they're just throwing lobs and not playing defense. But yeah, that was a cool event last year. I'd expect there to be better turnout. I just don't think last year it was like really marketed that well in advance. I think it was kind of one of those deals where they could have had a bigger turnout if more people knew about it. But they've had a whole year to kind of now Hot Springs knows what to expect from that, and I think they put this on their radar a little bit earlier this year.
Again, the Carter Knox issue, hogsillustrated.com/subscribe is the website, or you can call 479-684-5509 to contact our office here about this Hogs Illustrated basketball preview. Baseball's in town this weekend. That's what I'm looking forward to. I know everybody's Tennessee. I get it. Big game. I'm looking forward to seeing the baseball team scrimmage a couple of times. They're going to play Little Rock on Friday night and DBU on Saturday. These are two really good programs that they're bringing in here. They both were in the Baton Rouge Regional last year. Little Rock, we know they took LSU to the absolute brink in the winner-take-all game, and you just wonder how could the postseason have gone different for Arkansas if Little Rock was able to pull off that upset on a Monday night.
Yeah, it was and it's cool to see somebody from Van Horn's tree take a program and have that type of moment. I know.
And like for him to have endured there, Chris Curry, who I talked to this morning, by the way, wonderful guy. I loved covering him when he was here. I'm happy I've maintained a nice relationship with him over the years. Love talking to him whenever they come here in the spring, and it's kind of cool that, we're talking baseball in the fall too, because this is like year 12 for him there, and that's not an easy place to win. And they've had some heartbreak. The year before, they were clearly the best team in the OVC, but they didn't win the tournament, and that's a one-bid league. And irony of all ironies, SEMO won the tournament and came to Fayetteville and eliminated Arkansas. Yeah. But he's persevered there, and I think that's what I'm so proud for him.
I remember even last year reading your story for the midweek game. It seemed like they'd already just been hit with a ton of adversity last year with injuries and stuff. And he was very adamant to you, like, once I get my team back, we can do some stuff. So it was interesting to see that kind of come together and them, as the course of the season went on, get a little bit healthier and go into the postseason and have the type of run that they had. That was, I think that there's a thing. I don't know if this would maybe happen with Arkansas State as much, but I think whenever Arkansas, schools in Arkansas compete in the postseason, Razorback fans usually rally around that team and cheer for them. I don't know if A-State would get that same type of love, probably to an extent, but especially UALR, I feel like, or Little Rock, whatever they want to be called now.
They want to be Little Rock.
They want to be Little Rock. I'll still probably always call them UALR just because that's what I grew up with. But I think that for some reason that's like an easier one for Arkansas to kind of get behind Razorback fans and support. But yeah, no, that was incredible watching them go to Baton Rouge and nearly pull that off.
Yeah, one thing that Chris told me today, they got a lot of players back from that team. They got 17 players back from a team that won the Ohio Valley and easily could have gone to the Super Regional. They lost Jackson Wells, who he's been their guy for the last 3 years on the mound. But they do think that they brought in some really good pieces from the transfer portal. So, I don't know what to expect from this game, and it's not going to be necessarily a traditional game because you might have one team throwing pitchers 1 inning apiece. That's what Little Rock did last week when they went to Ole Miss. Nobody threw more than 1 inning. I think they threw 14 pitchers over the course of 12 innings. So you've got that. You're going to have like free substitutions where a player gets hurt, he can come out and they can take a look at him, but maybe he goes right back in and he's on second base. So it's not going to be your traditional game. But I think that this is a team in Little Rock that can really make Arkansas better by playing this. And I don't know that you would have said that all the time 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Yeah, and I do think that there's something to be said about I know Van Horn was kind of the one leading the charge with having Arkansas play some of these in-state teams.
And the first team they played was Little Rock, and they took them to the woodshed. 17-7.
I think that it does enhance the quality of all the programs in the state when you have those games like that. Just getting the opportunity to know, especially for recruits, for those smaller programs, like being able to say, hey, if you come here, you can go and play in Baum Walker at least once a year. I think that we've seen kind of that partnership be cool, at least with Arkansas and UALR, because Arkansas is going to be the superior baseball program in this state, but it's like, why not, help out Little Rock a little bit with getting them in your stadium playing them. And then there's that relationship with Coach Curry. I'm like, it seems like there's a nice mutual respect there right now that isn't kind of that, it's not the same vibes. I keep on coming back to Arkansas State. It's like I feel like we felt leading into Arkansas versus Arkansas State football where there's just animosity. I just don't feel that animosity with UALR at all.
No, and certainly not with baseball. There's too much respect there between those programs. So Dave Van Horn speaking tomorrow. We'll have a lot from what he has to say, obviously, at our website, wholehogsports.com. We'll have baseball coverage throughout the rest of the week at our website, and certainly we'll talk some about this on our podcast next week. Again, tomorrow, we're not going to have a traditional podcast. It'll be a Q&A with Ethan and Bruiser Flint at the Hogs Illustrated Sports Club. Hope you'll tune back in to see that. Hope we see you there or at our website, wholehogsports.com. Have a great day, everybody.